I would like to start today's video talking about this man, Antoine Hubert. Of course, today's video we're having a look at the future of Renault Formula One team and looking at their young driver program. And I personally feel, despite the tragic, the awful events at this year's 2019 Formula 2 Belgian Grand Prix, Antoine Hubert was, if not the brightest star in the Renault Young Driver Academy. He was bossing it in 2019. His rookie year in Formula 2, 2 victories, one at his home Grand Prix at Le Castellet, another one in Monaco, both of them the sprint races. But for me, and I said this in some of my reviews for the races and even pre-season to Formula 2, this guy was on his way to Formula 1, which makes the events even worse in a way, because I do feel, as one of the four musketeers, we were looking at a driver here that was going on to do some special things. And okay, a lot of people, I understand the best way to deal with it is moving on, and we've all had completely different reactions to this event. But some of the tributes we've seen over Formula 3, Formula 2 and Formula 1, for me anyway, has been really heartwarming. And I know I'm a nobody in the grand scheme of things, but even today's video, I want to just completely demonetize. So if you do see adverts for any reason, either that's YouTube doing it or I've missed something, so please let me know. But that's the plan for today's video, and I felt it was the right place to start, just to say something, because for me he was the star, the Charles Leclerc as he was in the Ferrari Young Driver Academy, as Norris was in the McLaren Young Driver Academy. I truly believe it was Hubert who was the brightest in this academy. Don't get me wrong, there's still some brilliant drivers in this program, but I don't think he was many years away from getting into Formula 1. So I just wanted to say that to start off. And 4 of the 5 drivers that we're going to be talking about today on screen there, an awesome tribute I felt in Russia in 2019, all supporting the helmet of Antoine. And Gasly as well in Formula 1 did a similar kind of thing with his own helmet. But for me, personally, I just wanted to say at least something at the start of this video. The main reason you're here is to talk about the future of Renault, and a driver I will definitely get shouted out if I don't include is Jack Aitken. I'm going to get shouted at either way with Jack Aitken, because technically he's not actually in the Renault Young Driver Academy anymore. He's Renault Formula 1 team's reserve driver, and up until this season, he was a young driver. However, I know so many of you love Jack so much, obviously being a big part of the WTF1 family, and I believe he carries a sponsor for WTF1 on his car as well, so I wanted to include him. He's not technically part of their academy, but he's still involved with the team. So Jack is 24 years old. He's a British driver currently racing in Formula 2 with Campos. Campos, if you don't follow Formula 2 but you keep up to date with Formula 1, a couple of weeks ago there were rumours they potentially could move into Formula 1 in 2021. That's not what we're going to be talking about today, but Jack Aitken drives in the orange car, is the best way to put it. He's currently 5th in the standings, and it's been a much better year than last year. Last year was his first year in Formula 2. He finished 11th overall, but it was a little bit lacklustre. This year has been much better, and I would say up until, well, just after halfway through the season, he was still in the championship hunt. He's just dropped off the boil just a little bit since the summer break, so he currently sits in 5th place with 1 round to go. But it's been a much better year this year from Jack. You can see, though, over his short career, he seems to do better in his second year within a championship. But being 24 years old and not really completely challenging for the title this year, I think his chances in Formula 1 are very slim. And if he stays in Formula 2 next year, he's going to have to win the championship to really stand a chance. Jack's a strong driver, but I think his future lies in sports like Formula E rather than Formula 1. Moving on to our second driver, Max FEWTRELL, our second British driver on the list. 4 years younger than Jack Aitken. Max is only 20 years old. As you can see in his junior career, he's currently in Formula 3, currently in 10th place in his first rookie year. It's not been a bad year, actually, for Max. 2 podiums so far in 2019. Next year, I imagine he will stay in Formula 3, and a little bit like what I just said with Aitken, next year, if he really wants to have a chance in Formula 1, I think he needs to at least pick up a couple of victories and at least be fighting for the title and in and amongst that title hunt. His junior career, though, as you can see, isn't that bad. British Formula 4 back in 2016, won the championship in his first year, then moved to Formula Renault Euro Cup, was 6th in his first season, but his second season was a hell of a lot better, winning the championship outright. And we've seen this from quite a few drivers in the modern era and through this series. They just need a year just to get used to the car, used to the championship, and it's that second year where they really push on and do well. Max, only 20. There are Formula 1 drivers that are younger than 20, but that's not too bad. He still has time to grow, and I think next year he can potentially put in the title hunt. And looking at his previous junior record, I think he will continue that trend, and I hope he can do well. He's racing at Macau in the next couple of... it might even be this weekend, I'm not too sure. Sticking with the Formula 3 lineup that he drives for already, I think Max is one to watch out for. I don't think he's proven that he deserves a step up to Formula 2 just yet, and that's definitely the key proving ground. But there's definitely elements of potential here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Max's career develops over the next few seasons. Moving on to the driver I think is most likely to make it to Formula 1 out of this entire list, ZHOU. I have to hold my hands up with this man. At the beginning of the year, and even now, looking at his previous career in Euro Formula 3, 13th in his rookie year, then 8th, then last year, finished 8th again. And for me, I've said it with the previous two drivers, if you're not fighting for a championship in the second or third year, then really you shouldn't be moving on. Renault took the gamble and they encouraged him, moved him up to Formula 2 this year, and he's had a really good season. 4 podiums and a pole position at Silverstone. This man has really impressed. And whilst, as I said at the beginning of the video, I think Hubert was the better of the two, I still think ZHOU has really improved as the year's been going on. Currently sits in 7th. I think he could potentially have a really strong final race and move up even higher. I don't know where this performances have come from. He's been right there with his teammate in several races. His teammate's Luca Giotto, and he was someone that was right in the title hunt for a good chunk of the season. But I don't know where this pace has come from. I also cannot remember the last Chinese driver we had in Formula 1, so please let me know in the comments below. There's this week's trivia question for you. But I really think there's a good vibe with this guy. He's really strong at overtaking, and even on Saturdays where he's not having brilliant qualifying, he then goes into the race and he's really strong. His race pace is really credible. And for a driver that I was sceptical at the beginning of the year, I think he's proved many of us wrong. I don't think he'll move up to Formula 1 next year, but Renault have already said in 2021 they'd like to promote a junior driver. I think ZHOU is most likely to be the man. Moving on to the last two drivers, a little bit more unknown. However, their impressive performances definitely deserve them a spot on this list. Christian Lundgaard, currently racing in Formula 3, finished the season 6th overall, so apologies, my graphic on the left-hand side there is a little bit incorrect, just a few places out. However, Christian did win the feature race back in Hungary. However, the final 2 weekends of the season didn't score any points in the 4 races, and that really hurt his championship position. But in a first year, I think that's very impressive, finishing 6th overall, and is definitely one to watch next season. Finished ahead of Max FEWTRELL. That's something interesting of note there. Spanish F4, won in his first season, then Formula Renault Euro Cup, 2nd in his first season. The Danish driver is definitely someone I could see moving up into Formula 1 over the next few years. A little bit like Max, I would like to see him in Formula 3 again next year, just get that little bit of grounding. However, if he did move up to Formula 2, that wouldn't surprise me all that much. I definitely think his performances this year have potentially warranted a move up. Maybe not so much as some of the other guys a little bit further up in Formula 3, but it wouldn't be a massive shock to me if he did move up. If he stays in Formula 3, he has to win the title, or at least be in the title hunt. Looking at what the likes of Robert Schwartzman and Armstrong did, so those two drivers were first and second in the championship. They're both Ferrari junior drivers. I'd like to think Lundgaard, who potentially could be a Formula 1 driver in the future, he's got to be a lot closer to that title hunt. And I think the more important thing I want to see from him next year is that consistency. Only 18 years old, definitely one to watch out for. And our final driver, Victor Martins, or I imagine it would be Martins, but I'm not too sure. Apologies, our pronunciation on all of these videos has been pretty awful, but then I suppose you're used to that if you're a veteran viewer, I will call you for today. Victor Martins, the only French driver in the academy at the moment, 18 years old, racing number 11. His junior career is a little bit more sparse than some of the other drivers on the list. However, whilst it doesn't look impressive on the surface, I actually think there's some good results in here. In 2016, drove in the French F4 Championship, only contested in 4 races, so that's why I've put not applicable, because there's not technically a championship position for him, but drove in 4 races and was on the podium twice. So that's quite respectable when your first ever series or 4 races in single-seater. Then in 2017, did a full season in French F4, finished second overall, but did move on to Formula Renault Euro Cup in the following year in 2018, finished 5th overall, which again, I don't think's too bad in your first rookie year. As I've said all the way through this list and all the way through this series, it's the second year that really counts. Currently is second in the championship with 1 more race to go, but it's too early to tell with Martins. There was quite a few drivers that are currently in Formula Renault Euro Cup, and to pick out of all of that list was quite difficult, but Martins is the one that's highest out of all of them. And I did feel it was probably fair to include a French driver, with Renault being a French manufacturer. He's someone to keep an eye out for, but it's definitely, I said this with a lot of the Mercedes drivers, it's too early to tell, but the potential is definitely there. And that's your 5 for the Renault Young Driver Academy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these drivers will potentially move up to Formula 1 over the next few seasons? Was I a bit harsh on some drivers? Was I not nice enough on some drivers? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe if you've made it this far and you've not subscribed. Well, you know where that button is. Like if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.